you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Folks, Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, it's wonderful to be back with my voice after 2 weeks of having the flu. If you ever think about getting the flu shot, you might want to give it a thought, because I wish I got mine now. Anyway, guys, we have an amazing show coming up, and I'm just hoping you're on the edge of your seats. You're just waiting to take in the wonderful guests that we always have on the Chris Voss Show. But as always, refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, and YouTube.com/Chris Voss. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today's featured author comes to us from bookstolifemarketing.co.uk. With expert publishing to strategic marketing, they help authors reach their audience and maximize their book's success. Today's amazing guest has several books. He's a multi-book author out. His latest is called Up From the Crowd: Lessons to Help Managers Become Effective Leaders by William L. Mince. Now on paperback, and this is the updated version. You can find its publication is April 3rd, 2026, to make sure you get the newest edition. And we're going to get into it with him and talked about his experience, life, etc., etc. He's a seasoned executive entrepreneur, inventor, and author. Much of his career involved mentoring teams and individuals. As a single father, he raised 2 teenagers on his own. He's published several business books and recently turned his focus to children's picture books. He aims to inspire others with his storytelling. Welcome to the show, William. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Did you want me to call you Bill during the show or William?
Yes, please. Only my grandmother called me William.
That's when you know you're in trouble, right?
You
When you use the full name.
You bet.
Yeah, that's when you just fake your death and move to another state. That's what I used to do. My mom would say, Chris, read out my full middle name. So William, give us .com's websites. Where do you want people to find out more about you on the interwebs?
At williamlmince.com or billmince.com or williammince.com. All 3 point to my author website.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book?
The what?
Give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your book, please?
Yeah. So this is a lesson to help people who are either beginning managers or folks who want to grow to become executive leaders. And my focus is on putting tools and sharing some of my experiences. This is basically 17 chapters of sort of hard-won experiences for me in a personal growth from starting out as a warehouseman and becoming, an executive in a public companies. And so along the way, I had some great mentors. And so I've shared a lot of that stuff in there.
And you've written how many books now?
I've got 2 that are published, a children's book, and then a new project leadership book coming out.
So give us some more details about this. How does it address leadership? What does Up From the Crowd mean? What does the title of that mean, I guess?
It's about separating yourself from all of the other, I'll say, managers out there and winning the award to wear the title and carry the title as leader. There's a difference between people who manage and people who lead. And people who lead focus on results. They know how to get a team pulled together. They're more focused on growing the team than their own individual success. So that I sort of separate that between someone who just manages a function and someone who's leading an organization.
Now you talk about how to understand what drives and motivates team members. Give us some dish on that, if you would.
I think having a shared responsibility among your team, and what you need is a clear set of objectives. And I'm all about driving what I call data without drama. And so you bring to a team a set of objectives, you focus on the real data with what the expected outcomes are, and you ask the team and coach them how to work together so that you get a joint solution to the problem rather than an individual superstar, carrying the whole load.
Yeah. And sometimes leaders and managers can do that, where they try and carry the whole load without doing proper distribution of tasks and stuff. I can do it better. I just give it to me and I'll do it.
Well, yeah, and this was the big epiphany for me because I thought when I dropped out of college to go to work because I had to support myself. And so I got a job very early as a warehouseman. Then I became a manager, and my ego got the best of me. And I thought, okay, I've just been promoted. I'm the smartest guy in the room. I can run faster, talk faster, do more than anybody else. And I sort of felt anointed and didn't understand the gift that I had been given to lead people. And it wasn't until 3M bought the company and I had a new boss who sort of really helped me start to think about what my role was. It was not to be the best single person. It was to bring out the best in everybody else. So that was a big epiphany for me.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting to me, and you have a lot of experience, as I do, teaching leadership, talking to people about leadership. It's interesting to me how many people get promoted in a company because they feel that they have leadership skills, but they don't give them any training. And, there's always holes, I think. I'm speaking from my experience of being promoted and kind of, having holes in my leadership skills and stuff that need to be filled in. I mean, a lot of times I get promoted when I was young because people would be like, he seems to have some leadership skills, but I didn't have all of them. And, there may have been ones that need to be some tweaking to it.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays where you kind of move from that Peter Drucker, gun to your head, do your job or get fired and you get a paycheck and that's your thank you. Now people want something more from it. And it's kind of an interesting place of doing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I truly believe that unless you're working with someone, I'll say a mentor who's going to help you grow, you have to sort of figure it out on your own. And so my approach when I went back to college, I had this non-traditional college education where I was going to school in the evening and working during the day. So I had this workshop during the day that I could take problems to my classes at night. And at night, I could get some more theory, talk to my classmates, come back in and try it out on the people the next day. So for me, my approach was to say, okay, I'm already working. I've got that. Where can I go get the skills and the experience to be able to learn how to manage these folks, learn how to help them grow? And so for me, that interplay between real life problems at work, practical solutions being taught in the evening, and over the course of, 3.5 or 4 years that it took me to get both degrees, it was really helpful because I just had this sort of coaching ability that it wasn't my boss. It was coming from a array of personalities and skill sets from the teachers that I had.
Nice. You gotta love it. You gotta love it. When you promote people, you really should put them through a training, irregardless of what you think they have. And maybe there needs to be a thing where people go, okay, this person has leadership skills, but what holes do they need to fill in? Just because I have a couple of them doesn't mean I'm a broad-based. I certainly wasn't the leader I am today, and I'll probably say that tomorrow or the next day. I'm constantly trying to grow and change and be better. But back when I get promoted, they just feel like, you have leadership skills. Here you go. People tend to listen to your bullshit. Go ahead. You oversee an 800-person facility now. Oh, okay. I'm not sure I fully have all the qualifications for this, or maybe, some good training. And then of course, a lot of training will, you can talk about culture, how to develop culture and maintain culture. And a lot of that needs to be a continuum as well. Cause, there are some people that come in and start performing with leadership culture reworking that undermines or interferes with the current culture that's being tried to be held by the corporation. And sometimes companies don't seem to learn that until everyone underneath them quits.
Yeah.
Is that what you see?
And so about 2002, I joined an organization where it was losing money. They were been public a few years. They were 27 million, losing 7 million. And I was brought in to as an operations guy to help sort of curb the losses, et cetera. And about 15 months later, we got a new CEO. And within 3 weeks, we were profitable because he had the guts to kill the product line that didn't make any sense and realign the organization. We then did 15 acquisitions in 8 years. And I was on the firing line for every one of those acquisitions. My job after we did the due diligence about the company was to be there the day the deal closed and now take this upset company who had just lost their boss and their owner or whatever it was and get them folded into the organization. And one of the things I found in many of those companies is these people had not been empowered. They were a sort of do what you're told to do, don't make any waves, be a sycophant to the owner, and everything will be fine.
Yeah.
My approach was, wait, I'm going to empower all of these people. And one of the things I had learned is how to empower people without losing control of the organization. And so I developed what I'll call a safety net approach where, we'll develop clear expectations. We're going to teach you how to do collaborative thinking, consensus decision making. You make the decision, pick a direction. Let's monitor where you're going. And, I'll check in on a weekly basis or a monthly basis and we'll see how we're doing.
Yeah.
Not to punish anybody, but to just say, how do we course correct? What do we now know that we didn't know then? And I sort of taught this model to people so they started to feel free to make a decision knowing that their boss wasn't going to fire them if they get it wrong. What they're going to fire them for is if they make a decision and don't follow up on it and then just hope for success. I mean, hope is not a viable strategy. So,
what?
I guess for some
I hope
folks,
it is. No, I'm just kidding. I had to do that joke.
but I think, for me, learning to delegate and learning to empower people in a way that was recognize their self-respect and their ability to contribute was a big learning step for me.
Another thing you talk about in the book is how to prepare an organization to meet the challenges of change. One of the things I tried to espouse early on was Peter Senge's book, The Fifth Discipline, which talks about how to build a learning organization.
Yeah.
And so one of the influences I tried to do is when I started my companies, the first thing I try and do is define culture, lay down a culture and a healthy environment that would engender learning as much as I could.
Yeah.
What are some ways that you recommend in the book to do stuff like that?
So obviously, 15 acquisitions, each time we bought another company, their culture didn't match our company. And we were generally buying companies that had similar product lines, in some cases, identical product lines. We had to pick which one we were going to keep and what we were going to do. And basically we were rolling up a particular industry. But one of the things that I focused on early on was to help people understand data. I've been very, very data driven. And so what I like to say to people is let's get the data without the drama and let's understand what our strategy is going forward. And so then do that. So we'll just plan, the data says your cost of goods is 78%. It needs to be 55%. That's a fact. That's what we need to be competitive in the industry. So that's an anchor point for people then to say, now let's go away and figure out what do we do to start shaving that off in a continuous improvement manner and engage the people in making those decisions. I'm not near as smart as the people who are near the details that are being done every day. But I try to create this culture where we're going to work this out together and we're going to, bring stuff to the table to talk about. But what's non-negotiable is that we're not going to change or improve. What is negotiable is how we get there.
Yeah. Yeah. And you got to really have people's buy-in nowadays. People want to feel like they're contributing more to the work that they're doing and contributing to the world or maybe the betterment of the environment or, whatever the reasoning is. They want to feel like, the work they're doing means something bigger to the bigger picture. Whether it does or not, that's in debate. I think sometimes when we see some of the things that are out there, but that's what they want. They want to feel like they're just not showing up for a paycheck with that gun to the head anymore, where it's like, do your work or else you get fired. And, they're not into that sort of carrot and stick sort of mentality.
Yeah. And I like to say that you don't build success by replacing people. You build it by developing people. And to me, I repeat that over and over and over and over enough where people now start I mean, if I end up having to replace somebody, it's been real clear for months that they're missing the mark. And oftentimes people will just say, Bill, maybe this isn't the right place for me. And they move on. But I don't need to punish people. You don't need to embarrass people. Yep. But if you develop people, if you can get somebody to understand, I see where the gap is, help me bridge the gap, then they're going to contribute more and they're going to really appreciate working for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you really got to touch the hearts and minds of people and inspire them now at a spiritual sort of almost spiritual, I should say, level. I mean, I don't need to be, having prayers in the office, but almost a spiritual leader that inspires them to give their best, to do their best as human beings and create. I mean, I learned a long time ago in business that I am not, as a CEO, the center of the universe when it comes to great ideas. I thought I was for a short time, and then I realized that I'm more at the center of 50-50 bad ideas versus good ideas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And that might be pushing it. So we have to check the numbers. But the jury's still out. But yeah, I'm not the purveyor of all the great ideas, I always say. And so having your employees inspired, caring, checked in, we saw over COVID, what's that thing that term they came up with where they basically phone it in at work? Quiet quitting? Yeah. And, there's a lot of these employees, and quiet quitting's always been a thing. I mean, I've always had tuned out employees. They're just like, I'm just doing the bare minimum just to do my job and screw this place. And it was because of me. Anyway, talk to us about whatever you want to play off of that I just served you.
I guess I think that ownership and accountability really, really matter. And I think you get there by delegation and trust and decision-making at the right level in the organization. And so I think people perform better when they own the planning and the outcome. As I used to say to my children, the same thing my mother used to say to me, life is full of choices. All choices have consequences. And I'm going to hold you accountable for the consequences of your choices. And I found that to be applicable in a business standpoint. And what I try to do is give people as much latitude to make decisions. But there's one model that I really, really have implemented that I call cooperative, discussions and consensus decision making. So it goes like this. If you have 6 people, first off, you have a problem that you want to solve. You get all the data, you get the facts, you put them on the table, you bring in the 6 people, and let's assume that those 6 people have 6 different experiences. So you've got 36 levers on that problem. And if you stand back and just let them talk about that, let the synergy and the sorry, I'm still recovering from a cold. Let them share that. They're going to come up with a better solution than I'm ever going to think of. And what I say to the team is, at the end of the day, whatever you guys decide on as a consensus, that's the decision we're going to make. And someone will say to me, yeah, but Bill, what if you don't like it? I said, it doesn't matter. I'm willing to bet on the wisdom of the crowd. I'm willing to bet. In fact, there's a book called Wisdom of the Crowd that is really, really helpful to teach this, that I'm going to bet on the 6 of you with your 6 each experiences. You're going to come up with the best solution. And you know what? We're going to implement it and we're going to monitor it. And if it doesn't turn out to be right, I'd rather have you guys make 10 decisions today than me make one, knowing that 8 of those are going to be mostly directionally correct. One of them will be a winner, and one of them will look at each other and say, why did we ever decide that? But at least we get 10 decisions made today and not just me telling everybody what to do.
Yeah. That's good to know. Talk to us a little bit about this other book, Project Leadership, 5 Essential Practices for Executives.
So I'm convinced that, project management tools are important. I think, getting a certificate in project management is important. But there are 5 key things I believe, and again, this has been well rehearsed over my career and practiced, is that there's a thing called scientific uncertainty that is the first thing I think that people need to understand. Don't start a project when if you're trying to figure out how to launch a rocket and you don't know how much fuel you need to put in it, you don't know what speed you have to be at to to escape the atmosphere. You're putting a project together, and you don't have what I will call scientific uncertainty. And growing up at 3M, I was taught if scientific uncertainty is eliminated, everything else is just math. And so it's predictable, and you know what you're going to do. The second thing is there's organizational roles. The problem with the project planning is you take a organizational structure that's basically built vertically, and you're going to try to push a project across that where not everybody wants to do the project. And some people will say, I didn't vote for this project, or my boss told me I need to do something else, or, whatever, I'm too busy because I've got the Smith account that I have to work on. And this project isn't well defined. So the executives have to step in and do that.
Yeah. Do you want to name off the 5 practices?
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, it's scientific uncertainty, organizational roles, the critical path, your project initiation trade-offs, and a project review. Those are the 5 things that I'm going to try to convey to executives about why it's important to have a formal plan. So you can get a project review done in minutes rather than days. So anyway, I've got some tools that I put together that have worked for me in my career.
Now you have 35 years across the career that you've taken and had startups, high growth companies, global enterprises, early training at 3M. All this goes into your books and what you're sharing to people. What is your goal to try and help people with the books that you're writing?
I want to give people a framework of sort of things to lean on. So if you're faced with an employee problem, I've got a chapter that helps you understand what's the right model for developing a corrective action plan or a performance improvement plan to help that person.
Throw them out the second story window.
Yeah, that's the last one on the list, but yeah.
Is it? Okay. Good enough. Let me write that down so I don't forget. Hold on. We're still replacing the window this week.
But my idea here is to share those tools that have worked for me, that have created an environment where people are free to make mistakes. They're free to be creative, but there's a set of rules and guidelines that keep it sort of within the bounds of the customer requirements and the financial needs of the company.
Yep, definitely. Talk to us about some of the offerings on your website, some of the services you provide or willing to provide, any future books coming up or any events or anything like that.
Yeah, so I've got a section on my website called Resources, and I've basically gone through my file drawer, and I'm going to list over the next few weeks about 20 different spreadsheets, forms for people who, if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting a business and you want to put a business plan together, I've got one that we use during due diligence that you can download the spreadsheet, put your numbers in it, and help build a financial plan, without having to log on to some big fancy system. So I'm going to put some of that available on the website. I'm also going to create an opportunity if people want some personal coaching, or they want me to come in and help them with their project development process or something. You will be offering that on through the website as well.
What does your ideal client look like? The one that you want to work with, or you like to work with, or that fits your mode?
Yeah. First, someone who is open to change and really wants to make a significant change in the culture of the organization and the trajectory that they're on. And they're willing to open their mind to hear about those things that can be successful and those things that will sort of help drive this forward, using people as the biggest lever in the company. If you're not focused on people as your biggest asset in your company, don't bother calling me, because that's what I'm going to lean on, Chris. So for me, it's the single biggest asset, underutilized asset in an organization. It's not the infrastructure, it's not the computer systems, it's the people, and that's really where I'm going to focus. Is how do we get people focused on driving what needs to be driven?
That's important. This leadership is everything. The main reason we talk about this all the time, main reason people leave leadership or businesses is because leadership sucks. No one likes working for a bad boss. And it's even me. That's what my employees tell me all the time. No one likes working for me. I don't know. We do the jokes around here, folks. Anyway, I mean, I untie them and let them out of their cages every night when I come back in the morning, and they're free to work, and then they go back to the cages. I don't really see what the problem is, but evidently then
you're probably not a candidate for my services.
Do they need to have a minimum net worth or a size of company, or anyone, small, medium, large businesses?
So I prefer to work with I'll say smaller units where there isn't such corporate overreach on what people are trying to do, where the local manager has some flexibility to change the culture, or they may be a division of a larger company that has a mandate to change the culture. But for me, this is about change. How do you change the trajectory that you're on, and how do you get the people engaged in making that change? That's really been sort of the focus of the latter part of my career.
Yeah, a lot of people, that's one thing they don't check on when they go out and sell stuff. Do we have everybody really buying into this? Because some people, they'll do that quiet quitting thing, or they'll sabotage the project because they're like, someone else's proposal got picked over mine, so I'm just going to sabotage this one. Yeah. So yada yada yada, and yeah. It's a thing. Anything more we should take and talk about and discuss maybe that I haven't asked you about?
I guess I think sort of this is a thought of mine. If you want better results, you need to start with clearer expectations and better data. And you need to communicate that in a way so that everyone in the organization knows what the expectations are and where you're going. And you need to put a structure around it so that when you share that information on where you're going, you can get to the data and get people to get, consensus building and decision making to move that forward. Oh. And I think this is about, like I said, you don't build success by replacing people. You build it by developing people. And so, to me, that's a big takeaway of what it is that I'm doing. Where I think, organizations are like a team sport. You got to focus on growing the team. I remember, I think it was John Wooden who said at one point, "Give me Stockton and 4 other team players in a week to practice, and I'll take on any team in the league." And wow! And because it was about one of the best ball control guys that we saw playing basketball. Oh, and it's about coaching a team sport as opposed to just, playing off the all-stars.
Yep. Yeah. But it's so many people have so much potential. I mean, I think of when I worked for companies and then went off on my own and I mean, boy, someone probably could have paid me better to stay where I was or utilize me better. And there was a lot of talent that's out there. And actually, that creates a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people who are entrepreneurs and end up creating something sometimes better in the place they worked. Their potential wasn't being taken care of or cared for. And, everyone's kind of a little different. You can't put people into boxes and just go, they work here and they're just mindlessly going about their job. I mean, there's Bob at our office that we can always say is just a zombie brain, but we always pick on a Bob. It's always Bob's fault. Bob is. Yeah. There's no Bob here, by the way. So
it's an interesting change for me as I've scaling down my executive involvement in full-time positions, and that is sort of as a grandfather, and now watching my grandchildren grow and have all of these tons of questions, especially with everything that's going on in the world today. You can imagine 7-year-olds hearing something on the news and then asking, "So what's going on, Papa? So that led me to starting to write my first children's book about a merpuppy, which is a half dog, half. This is the book cover. This just came out on Amazon, and this is about animal that is sort of doesn't exactly fit in, and I'm trying to teach kids that what makes you different makes you special, and so this is sort of a lesson to children. And I've got another one in the works right now on how do you get 5 monkeys that have 12 decisions where they want to go on a vacation. How do you get the 5 of them to agree on the single one that they're all going to agree on? And so that's actually a chapter in my book on, collaborative thinking, consensus decision making. I'm scaling it down, I hope, to a children's book where I can start to teach and 5-year-olds, how do you work together cooperatively? And I think that, let's start building leaders, in kindergarten, and let's start teaching people how to work together and to make decisions together, and not all the division that we have around today. So that's sort of a mission for me in terms of, what can I do based on my experience helping adults? How can we start early on and get children to learn how to think and grow and participate equally with each other?
Yeah, maybe we should teach more team building or leadership skills in school, because I learned so much shit that the most important thing that I learned in school was how to type on a keyboard. What do you call it, QWERTY or 10 key or whatever?
Yeah.
Because I remember I graduated high school and none of the guys I knew how to type on a keyboard except for henpecking, and I could kill it with business letters and doing business and invoices because I could type. And that was the single most important, valuable return on investment thing I ever learned in school. And it's just insane that we don't teach life skills or business skills, how to be a good employee, maybe how to be a good boss, maybe how to be a good manager. I mean, everyone's going to go through that stuff. Why aren't we teaching that? You maybe learn in college, maybe, I don't know. It depends on what your study is, right? But, I didn't need to learn algebra 5 or 3 or 2 or 1. Didn't need to learn that. Now, the guys who went into science and accounting and all that stuff, they probably need to learn that stuff, engineering, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. But someone should have looked at me when this kid's dumb as rocks. Let's give him some better life skills, how to maintain your credit or build credit, how to be, how to resolve your trauma, how to be in a healthy relationship with a human being, how to be a good parent. Like, we don't teach any of that crap. Yeah. And it's not crap. We need to get people teaching it. But I don't know. I don't make the rules clearly. But when I get in power, change is coming, people.
Yeah, okay. I'll be looking for that.
I don't know if it'd be good, but I don't know. I'll make a good tyrant. Anyway, that's probably why they don't let me in the doors there. So anyway, they just let me have a podcast, and just give them the podcast and they'll stay out of trouble. So thanks. Any final thoughts as we come out, or give people the final pitch out to order your book and get in touch with you, Bill?
No, I'm looking forward to taking my experience and helping those folks who really want to accelerate their growth from being a manager to an executive leader. And I think I've got some experience having been through that. And I'm willing to help and share that with people between the tools on my website and any sort of personal coaching if somebody wants some of that.
Yep. Personal coaching is really important. Learn, grow, do that. And leadership is always good. I've read 1 million leadership books. I'm sure you have too. I can always read more and get different perspectives, different ways of analyzing stuff. And sometimes it's a great refresher course too, because there's so much crap I've consumed. There's sometimes you lose track of stuff, and then you have an aha moment. You're like, oh yeah, I remember that. I need to get back on doing that because I lost more of the journey.
Because, everything is situational. And so you may be in a job or a transition where, half of the stuff doesn't apply. And then, you just, so the bigger number of arrows you can put in your quiver and then remember where they are when you need them is the key. And I think that's a big part of it. You just have to expose yourself to as many tools as you can and pull them out when it's appropriate.
Yeah. Yeah. And having that toolbox is really important, because the more skills you have and the better you are at doing stuff, then the better you can succeed, advance, get promoted, all that good stuff. Thank you very much, Bill, for coming to the show. We really appreciate it.
Oh, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. And to our audience, order up his book wherever fine books are sold. Make sure you get the 2026 version. This is the revised, updated version. I think you added a few things, didn't you, Bill?
Yeah, I added 3 new chapters, and I put a little bit about AI in there and how important it is, how AI can fit into leadership.
AI and leadership, the new thing. I just tell ChatGPT to go boss my employees around and write them up.
Yeah, how's that working out for you?
Everyone's really unhappy, but I don't know why.
Yeah, and it'll probably tell them to quit. But it'll probably tell them to quit if it knows you.
That or worse, it's done some horrible things to some people that need to really talk to a human being as opposed to a machine.
Exactly.
But, it's just unfortunate. But I guess we have to learn these things the hard way sometimes, because I don't know, everyone's doing AI. I mean, there's a lot of great things about it, but it's going to bring some challenges maybe to leadership in the future and try to navigate the future for one. So, all right. Well, thank you very much for coming to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, YouTube.com/Chris Voss. You know all the Chris Voss's folks. You listen to the show. Thanks for tuning in. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.